So when internationally acclaimed Hong Kong action director John Woo finally comes to Hollywood, of course you're teaming with Jean-Claude Van Damme in this kinetic and thrilling action film, Hard Targets. Vile mercenary Emile Fouchon and his enforcer Pick Van Cleef recruit combat veterans for the amusement of his clients. Bored tycoons who will pay $500,000 to stalk and kill the most challenging prey of them all, man. However, when a erroneously chosen substitute is put in place one night with Douglas Binder, his disappearance brings his estranged daughter to New Orleans. She soon is able to enlist Chance Boudreaux, a fellow out-of-work veteran, to guide her through the city to find her father and protect her from potential threats. As they dig around and come too close to possible answers, Fouchon and Van Cleef raise the severity of their operations to both cover their own tracks and attempt to take out Chance and Natasha. Yet Boudreaux proves to be a hard target to kill and becomes their most exceptional prey to date. Now Chance will lead them on a run through the bayou in order to exact justice for those slain and give them the deadliest hunt of their entire lives. So released into US cinemas on August 20th of 1993, Hard Target was the American film debut of director John Woo, who had gotten such major acclaim from films like A Better Tomorrow, The Killer, Hard Boiled. All these films he did out in the East filtered out throughout international markets, building up a following and a cult fan base, and just getting such a major buzz, hearing that Universal Studios was getting him in to do a film for them, and having such a carte blanche of different scripts to choose from to apply his visceral, innovative style towards. It was a major type of thing to get a lot of people excited, and definitely one of those people was the producer on the film, Sam Raimi, who had already done a couple of films for Universal at the time, including Darkman and Army of Darkness. Him and his partner Rob Tepper came onto this film as producers, and a couple other Van Damme films after this, such as Time Cop, and he was already a major fan of John Woo, and they kind of brought Sam in as kind of like, they weren't entirely certain having a full sense of confidence because there was obviously a language barrier there and everything, but Raimi said that John Woo working at 70% is probably better than most action American film directors working at 100%, so he had absolutely no qualms whatsoever, no loss of confidence in what John Woo could achieve in this environment and everything, and just being just a guy there to really kind of support him and make sure that his film ran smoothly and everything. So that's a really cool type of thing to have in that. And it was just one of those things where choosing the script and everything was kind of like, they had a bunch of martial arts films in there and everything, and Woo was kind of like, I've already done a bunch of those. I'm really not quite interested in that. I want to kind of do something a little bit more fresh to himself and everything, and obviously a lot of his films were very violent, very bloody affairs, whole lots of magnificent shootouts and everything, but there's probably just something with the concept of the whole thing and working with the different stars in the film and all these types of things really kind of have a bit more of a different style of juice for him to kind of sink himself into. So he really just picked this script out and just felt like it had a lot of great things that he could just nail and bring so much more to the table with, and there's such fantastic stuff throughout this entire film to really get into. But one of the main things that you can kind of say that because Woo had such a violent, sort of gory type of style in his Hong Kong films and whatnot, MPAA was not going to be very sort of liking towards that very graphic type of style and everything, and there do exist many different cuts of the film. Most of them have not been released. The actual release film in international markets was about an hour and 39 minutes long. US got a few extra minutes chopped out of that version of the film, and apparently there are work print versions that do have much more footage attached to them. A lot of extra scenes, a lot of extra extended action sequences, a lot more gory type of stuff into it, but sadly it's only exists on like really badly quality videotape masters and everything, so we've never actually seen a full director's cut, if you want to call it that, about the film. But thankfully the US Blu-ray release did finally reinstate the international cut, which just has a little extra extension of sequences, so anyone who had like the old DTS Laserdisc back in the day from the US, got the slightly cut down version despite having a fantastic sound mix that you enjoy. And I think Woo did choose a good story to tell here, because it's kind of the old turn on the story of the most dangerous game, where people of affluence hunt down the poor and the indigent. And there was kind of another film at this time called Surviving the Game with Rutger Hauer and Gary Busey and Ice-T. But I like so much about how Hard Target builds its story, because you got the entire fierce ferocity of the entire story, whatnot, with all the action sequences and the peril and stuff like that, where they're kind of using these military combat veterans and whatnot as the prey for their game and everything. So certain people that do have a certain set of skills, but they're people who are down in their luck, scraping by, don't really have anyone attached to them and whatnot, so they're kind of preying on these people in terms of their desperation, all that type of stuff. So that builds a certain sympathy for the audience with these characters. And then when you've got Yancy Butler's character come in the whole thing, wondering about what happened to her father, that further builds a sympathy with her character, and see how Chance Boudreaux gets involved in this whole thing and see his quality of his character and everything. It kind of just branches out in that type of way. And then what they're doing here, the entire sort of that element of the story where they're abusing and using these indigent sort of veterans and whatnot, further amplifies the sadistic, sinister nature of the villains in the film. So it's like the entire concept branches out and sort of accentuates the qualities of the characters even further. So it's like, it's a really good type of thing to just have a thread of sympathy for the protagonist of the film. And there's just dark, sinister, very violent, vile type of stuff where they kind of have their own justification of doing this type of stuff, that people who work for the government, stuff like that, who are sort of put into war and all these different situations and whatnot, employed by the government to kind of go off and do this stuff. Why not give that same sort of impunity to private citizens and whatnot, to just go off and sort of hunt almost innocent people in a certain way who are taken advantage of? It's a very interesting type of concept there to kind of see the motivation, but also see how they're kind of twisting the entire perspective around. Is really good storytelling, in my view, that they use the core concept to branch out and feel how everything affects everything in the entire city of New Orleans here, and all these different characters and whatnot. It feeds into the perspectives of all the different things. So it's like, it's a really good put together story, and it just exemplifies the quality of using an action movie concept to just sort of bring more character and more depth to the characters you have in the story. And of course, just absolutely have to talk about Van Damme with this whole thing, because I think it's right when he was just really starting to find his footing and started making some really good hits. He just done like Universal Soldier and is about to do Time Cop and Sudden Death, where maybe some of them weren't as terribly successful financially, but they're fantastic films up to this point in time and whatnot. So I was like, looking back on them, he put together a lot of really good action films in the next couple of years. So it's like, this is a really good type of thing, and teaming with Woo, who just makes him look like a $10 million action star in this film. All the physicality he gets to put off of this whole film, between just the stunts and the martial arts, all these different things he has to deal with, and all the action sequences, just looks phenomenal, just looks absolutely fantastic. But he's also starting to still struggling a tad bit with some of the line deliveries here and there, but you can still see the emotion in his eyes, and when he has these sort of heartfelt moments with the character of Natasha there, Yancy Butler's character, that you can just see the sympathy, the vulnerability and whatnot, the sort of relatability about his character and his performance there. So it's like, even if some of the line deliveries are still trying to get a little bit more of a footing in the English language, he's still putting forth the effort and whatnot. And certainly I think it was around the time where he was having some sort of maybe substance abuse problems, or maybe an ego problem, stuff like that. But on screen, the guy fucking delivers, and he does a really good job to really kind of magnify a lot of different elements about the story here and everything like that. So it's like he brings together really good characters. You can see his plight in the whole thing, where he is also in the same situation that her father was in, and all that type of stuff, scraping by, trying to just find a little bit of work here and there to kind of put things together. So you can see the sort of quality about the character, but that he's a stand-up guy and he doesn't take advantage of people. So, and he's just an action hero in the whole film and everything. So it's like, it all comes together. It's really convincing to the point where it needs to be, where you can just believe in the character, get behind the character, get a few little moments throughout the entire film, whether it is with Yancy Butler or even later on where you got Wilford Brimley showing up as his uncle, kind of doing a Cajun Creole accent that still kind of not entirely sits well with me in a certain way. I'm not entirely convinced about him. I've always had a little bit of trouble kind of adapting to his performance there in that type of way, but Van Damme does a really damn good job in this film, and just like I really just enjoy what he has to offer overall. You can definitely see where he's building himself towards when you start getting with Peter Hyams and whatnot, where he kind of really starts locking into place, really getting a strong footing on the performance end of things. He's really getting up to a good point in time in his career about just becoming a better quality actor in certain points. So this is definitely a good performance from him. Yancy Butler, really good. And there's not a whole lot to say about her performance, but she delivers what she has to in the whole film, that she has this sort of honest sympathy about her characters. You definitely have an empathetic quality with her character. You can definitely feel about what she's going through and whatnot, having this whole thing where she hasn't seen her father since she was 7 years old and all this sort of estranged stuff going on, but she still has this sort of regret about things that she wanted to kind of, knowing what happened to her father, whatnot, she wishes she could have been with him and let him know that she loved him and all this type of stuff. So she gets good moments as well. They really write in nice beats for the characters as she have a little bit of a depth, a little bit of an emotion towards what's happening and what has happened in the story and everything. So she does a really solid job. And I think her and Van Damme work off of really nicely in this whole thing. There's a not like there's a romantic spark, whatnot, but they have a real good, solid bond. You can feel that there is a bit of a chemistry there and everything. So I think there's a really good type of stuff with that. But this goddamn movie has some of the best villains I've ever seen in an action film. I love this type of stuff. I love Arnold Vosloo. This guy's amazing. He's one of the best actors to play a villain ever. And he gets so many opportunities throughout the next several years to really just do some great stuff. And here, this is wonderful. Pick Van Cleef is a wonderful character. You can just see that he's so relishing the moment of just dealing with his character and getting into the thick of it and all and everything. He's got the best lines of dialogue in the entire goddamn movie. All this stuff about, they come back later, I'm gonna cut me a steak. And the stuff like that where he starts doing the whole thing about like, you wouldn't want to hurt my feelings and all that type of stuff. Just like wonderful lines of dialogue, and just love every beat that he plays in this whole movie, that you just see there's just a fun quality with what he's doing here. Just like, he's just got this certain sort of sadistic edge, but it's such a wonderful, fun type of thing to just experience, be entertained by in the film. He comes off absolutely wonderfully in this whole thing. Just like, they got this great dynamic between him and Lance Henriksen, which I'm going to get into depth very shortly here. But you got this whole thing where Van Cleef is sort of, he's kind of the cold, calculating type of guy. He can keep everything on a very professional edge. He can kind of perceive the situation in a very strategic type of fashion. You can see how things are going much more in their favor, and when things are kind of in a more of a dangerous situation where they're not entirely in control of what's going on. He's just got these really good moments where you just see him really dialed into that type of quality about the character there. He's very much on the track of making sure everything goes exactly as it's supposed to, and dealing with taking out trash or tying up loose ends here and there. Just like a wonderfully written character. And Vosloo just relishes every single moment he has to play this character on screen. I absolutely positively love it. And Lance Henriksen, who apparently was very excited to work with John Woo, definitely another fan of his work. And Lance is a goddamn heavyweight in this whole film. I absolutely am extremely impressed by his performance here. That he does a fantastic job. I've said in other things before, that when he gets really good material, he just blows it the hell out of the water and just does a fantastic, amazing job as a character. Fushan here, you just have this fiercely intense sort of temper the character has when things just really just go in the wrong direction. Things are not handled well. It's just like he's a guy who does not suffer idiots or fools at all. He's got this wonderful dynamic in the whole film where you can see the sort of calculated cool edge he has in certain points, his sophistication that he kind of exudes in points in the film. But as soon as things just kind of start irritating him. People just not getting the job done in certain places. He just takes off and does a fantastic job. I absolutely just think it's one of his best performances. He's just so on the goddamn money, just so intense in his entire performance of this character. You're just so sold into the entire thing of how the story builds up and how much of a just, again, a sadistic bastard this character is, facilitating these entire hunts and whatnot, is a fantastic build-up. And just how he just kind of takes over the situation, keeps building and kind of gets a little bit of his ego in a way, because you got these moments towards the third act of the film where Van Cleef is kind of saying, I can take him from the sky, I can take him from the air, I can get the chopper and just take him. And a sniper rifle, no, Fushan wants to get that sort of face-to-face kill because this guy's ruined their plans so much. He's become such a absolute thorn in his side that he just has to do it himself. He needs that sort of validation or whatnot. He needs that sort of satisfaction of doing it himself because it's pissed him off so much dealing with this guy. So he gets a little bit ahead of himself. Doesn't have that clear focusing that Van Cleef has. He has a little bit more of an impassioned type of response to everything. So again, that's a really good, smart dynamic written in the script to have a different mentality between Van Cleef and Fushan there. Not to take away from anyone else in the film, not Van Damme or Butler, but when you've got really fantastic villains in an action film, it makes your goddamn day. It just makes the whole fucking film an amazing piece of work. Just like you think back, like Die Hard wouldn't be as good if you didn't have a guy of the caliber of Rickman doing that performance. It was a bit of a lesser actor. It didn't get the quality, the nuance of the character, and just the entertainment value and the charisma. And a lot of it would fall flat. So you do have to give a hell of a lot of credit to the guys who portray these villains in these action films, who do just an amazing job to just get it completely on the money. And Vosloo and Henriksen are just absolutely fantastic. They're two of my favorite action film villains of all time. And to capture John Woo's signature style in this whole film, they employed a damn good cinematographer in Russell Carpenter, who had already done Death Warrant for Van Damme, A Pet Sematary 2, Lawnmower Man, go on to shoot True Lies, Titanic, the Charlie's Angels films, Ant-Man. The guy who put together some really good looking films. And it is definitely one of the best ones, because with John Woo, you just know you're getting a certain cinematic style in this whole thing. And like, even from the beginning of the film, just like how they have the shots following the steel arrows going across screen and whatnot, just like these little touches really add so much veracity to certain action moments in the film. They're just such an intensity, such a good quality about how everything has an impact on the film. Everything has just a visual style to it and everything that is not as bloody as his other stuff was in Hong Kong and whatnot, but there are certain moments in the film where they're actually able to use a lot of gory moments in the best effect possible. They use them when the story quality and the emotional investment really has enough payoff towards that end to use enough graphic quality in the whole film to use as much blood as they can get away with. But just the fact that the film just has such a gorgeous, beautiful look to it. I just love the entire intensity of certain sequences where it's just at night and you're kind of moving through like the cemetery or whatnot and getting all these different angles and dynamic shots. Everything they have going on through the entire film. We just have different sequences. They're all versatile. All the different action sequences just have their own style and flavor and their own dynamics, all these different things that they never kind of ring the bell of certain things too much to kind of get you tired of it. It's like there's always a different style of a sequence coming up, whether it is a chase sequence or there is sort of the entire thing with on the motorbike, all that type of stuff, or whatever it is. They've got different things going on where they have like the helicopter chasing Van Damme when he's on the horse, stuff like this. It's like they've got interesting, innovative ideas to kind of have different styles of action sequences go on in the entire film and have different just feelings and different intensities, all these different things, different types of stakes and whatnot. Is a really good type of thing to just have the entire film build towards that entire thing, that every single action sequence enhances the stakes of the entire story. More things are at stake, and there's more things to lose as things go along. The danger becomes much more focused, closer towards our protagonists. I just like how it just builds. It just has an organic sense about how everything just has a flowing quality, just like an intensity of focus that just works towards the entire cohesiveness of the story here. The innovative style of using the slow motion that John Woo is known for really comes out really well in most cases, but it kind of distracts me a little bit in a certain way, where you got certain scenes or certain shots that are organically shot at a high frame rate to make that nice smooth slow motion effect. Then there's kind of scenes and shots that are kind of butted up right against to it, where they kind of like did it in post, where they kind of like double printed frames, so it has a bit more of a strobe quality to it. So it doesn't come off as quite as well as you possibly could be if it was all kind of planned in advance, exactly all the shots that like the editor would want to use to kind of extend things out here and there. So it's like kind of has a little bit of a mismatched quality to me in a certain way. And another thing about the editing in the film kind of throws me off a little bit is that they have all these kind of like wipe shots in the whole film. They kind of seem like they're executed more like you'd have in sort of a whimsical comedy in a certain way. It just felt like tonally that style of cut just didn't quite feel like it fit the tone of the rest of the film. It just feels like maybe they didn't really kind of plan to have a certain transition shot between one scene to the next, and so the editor kind of used a different kind of trick or whatnot. But these are little minor type of things that I kind of put against it, but it's like they're just little technical things. They kind of just throw things off a tad bit for me, but the execution of everything else just comes out so fantastically well that just how it all builds up. You keep getting bigger sequences, much more larger stakes and whatnot, and getting up to the climax in that sort of a Mardi Gras graveyard warehouse where they're just gonna wreck shop, all this type of stuff. Just like, it's a fantastic sequence. And just again how everything starts getting laid to waste and all this type of stuff, and just have these wonderful, clever moments. Just love that moment where Van Cleef and Boudreaux just kind of have that signature shot of Woo or whatnot, where they kind of slam against either side of the wall or whatnot, and just have this little dialogue between them. It just, again, it has them little beats of character in there, little beats of wit to it and everything that really makes everything so much more entertaining and so much more enjoyable. You just want to have that little beat there, whatnot. Just like, I love these moments. Just like, it just adds so much to the film. They have amazing action in the film, but you got good characters. You got good things built up with this type of stuff. You don't forget about quality of characters as you progress through the entire film, and you just have these wonderful moments like that, and just how Van Cleef gets wiped out with just getting riddled with bullets and all this type of stuff. Wonderful end for him, and then just like everything's just Boudreaux and Fouchon there, and everything just like Henriksen, Van Damme just have a wonderful climax in this whole thing. I just love how just fantastic Lance is in this entire thing. He is so intimidating, such a fantastic heavy in this whole thing. He's just amazing quality of what he's bringing into the performance to make him such a deadly, lethal character in this whole thing. You entirely believe that he has every intent to just blow everyone away. He has no qualms, no remorse, no sympathy about everything. It's all about him. Why'd you feel the need to complicate my life? Is a wonderful line, just like, and just retorting with that is like, poor people get bored too. It's just like these wonderful interactions are played so fantastically well, and just have the entire set piece of everything on fire, all this type of stuff, making the visuals just pop out even more starkly. It's wonderfully constructed, and all this type of stuff just have all these things where, again, you have Van Damme, you can do all these flips and all these different things and whatnot to make such an amazing looking film that has such a value on screen for everything you have going on here. And it's like the entire build-up, the entire thing you got going on, this whole thing where you get the flashes back of all the people that Fouchon has been responsible for having died in this whole thing. It just adds so much. It's great storytelling, great visual things in the film that just amplify the sequence and get you up to that final moment where everything just kind of just lays waste and whatnot, and just like, it's just an amazing action climax. It's got everything going for it. Fantastic cinematography, wonderful choreography, great explosions, just gunplay all over the place, and just Van Damme gets in so many roundhouse kicks in this film. It's absolutely beautiful. Just like, it's got all the great things you could have. It's got fantastic villains. It's got really good solid leads. And just like everything comes together so well because it's an organically flowing story. There's never action in this film that is not motivated by what's going on in the story. It's the fantastic thing that, you know, again, you got Wu with a freaking language barrier who might have had to have the script sort of translated for him or something like that. Who knows? But everything comes together fantastically. All the actors are directed so damn well. You got just everyone dialed into the characters just right on the money there. Some little things are a little silly, like, again, in the motorcycle chase scene where you eventually have Van Damme, who doesn't have his hands on the handlebars at all to use the controls, and the motorbike is still kind of just going in a straight and balanced line or whatnot for a few seconds there. It's a little silly, but it is a little bit of an over-the-top action film in certain places, so you can kind of forgive it for little moments like that, or a little straining the suspension of disbelief just a tad bit. But again, there's little minor nitpicks that I have. They're nothing to condemn the film for because it's so goddamn well done. In a year where you had some good action films, you had Demolition Man and Cliffhanger, and maybe you could talk about Last Action Hero. Lance Henriksen showed up another film where he's kind of a villain and whatnot, Excessive Force, with Thomas Ian Griffith, which I reviewed a couple of years ago. Really damn good in that too. So it's like, there's a lot of good action films that came out this year, and just a lot of good films in general. The Fugitive, Jurassic Park, a lot of thrilling, fantastic films, and this one just holds up really damn well because it's John Woo. He brought that style to it. He brought that intensity. He brought that flavor that no one really kind of captured so much in American cinema at this point. Love Grant Revell's score in this whole thing. He really has moments in this film that just soar very strongly. Just has great cues in certain places, and other points where he kind of plays out the sort of deep South New Orleans type of flavor and whatnot. So it's like they hit off really good qualities with the music, the score, the whole thing. You get a little bit of Creedence Clearwater Revival there in the end credits and whatnot. So they hit the flavor all of everything very well in that regard. And just like, there's not much, there's no damning things I can say about the film. It's really well put together. It's a really fun film. It's just intense. It's wonderful. So guys, I mean, my gushing is enough. Let me hear what you feel about Hard Target, and just kind of give me your rundown, your feelings about John Woo's American films as he did for the next maybe 15 years or whatnot. Let me know what you feel about how his thing in Hollywood kind of worked out to you and everything, especially if you know his Hong Kong stuff very well. Let me feel what you have for that, and definitely how Hard Target spans out in the pantheon of Van Damme films and all this other type of stuff. So I could go on and on. It's a really damn good, excellent film. So let me know what you feel about that, guys. And of course, my friend Oliver Harper has been doing a action film documentary called In Search of the Last Action Heroes. It's coming to a very soon conclusion. It's set for release this September. So guys, if you want to see interviews from fantastic people who worked in 80s and 90s action films and is telling the entire story of what these films meant, how they changed the entire genre, how they defined everything, and all this type of stuff, definitely hit up his stuff and see how it's going along, and definitely you can secure your copy of the film through his website and everything. So guys, awesome type of stuff. Looking forward to that and your comments as well on Hard Target. So guys, thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.